My wife demanded I give my bonus to her brother's failing business. I said, that money was for our baby's future. She laughed and said, well, there's no baby now. I froze. Her brother looked pale as I opened the hospital email. She had terminated it without telling me. I never thought my life would unravel in a kitchen. You imagine disasters happening in dramatic ways. Cars crashing, someone shouting in the rain, a glass shattering against the wall. But for me, it was just a Tuesday night, lukewarm pasta, and a sentence that cracked the world open. It started like any other evening. I'd just gotten home from work, another soul-draining day of spreadsheets and Zoom calls with people pretending to care about warehouse analytics. I was exhausted, but buzzing a little. That day, I'd received my annual bonus. $18,000. Not enough to retire, but it felt like a small trophy after a year of being on call 24/7, fixing systems at midnight, missing dinners, holidays, and, most importantly, moments with Celine. She was at the stove when I came in, stirring something that smelled like burnt cheese. Hey, I said, slipping off my shoes and tossing my bag onto the chair. Hey, she replied, not looking up. I walked over and kissed her cheek. She didn't flinch, but she didn't lean in either. That wasn't unusual lately. We'd been off. Not fighting, but not really connected either. I chalked it up to stress, hormones, the pregnancy. She was about 13 weeks along. I got the bonus, I said, trying to sound casual but hoping she'd react. Smile. Be happy with me. With us. Oh, she said, setting down the spoon. Yeah, I grinned. 18 grand. She turned, finally meeting my eyes. That's great. Actually, she paused. I was thinking, maybe you could give it to Victor. I blinked. Victor? Yeah, she said, walking over to the fridge and grabbing a bottle of water. He's launching the massage app. You know, the one I told you about. He's this close to getting it going, but he needs a little push. I laughed. I thought she was joking. You want me to give my bonus to your brother? The same guy who couldn't keep a frozen yogurt shop open. He's serious about this, she said sharply. He's done the research. He's got a developer and everything. I put my hands on the counter and took a breath. Celine, that money was for the baby. We talked about this. Diapers, the nursery, doctor bills. She cut me off, voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Well, there's no baby now. Everything stopped. My brain didn't compute it at first. It just froze. What? I asked, slow, careful. There's no baby, she said again. I had the procedure. It's done. I stared at her, heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else. What the hell are you talking about? What procedure? She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and slid it across the counter. I looked down. It was an email confirmation. Termination of pregnancy. Scheduled. Completed. My mouth went dry. You went through with it? You didn't even tell me. I didn't need your permission, she said, shrugging. It's my body. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even stand properly. I sat down at the kitchen table like my legs had just quit. We tried for 3 years, I whispered. 3 years, Celine. And I changed my mind, she said, almost emotionless. It didn't feel right. When did you decide this? I don't know, she said, crossing her arms. A few weeks ago, I started thinking about what it would really be like. Being stuck at home, losing my freedom. I realized I didn't want it. I looked at her like I'd never seen her before. You could have told me. We could have talked about it. We were supposed to be a team. She turned away, her voice soft now. I didn't want to be talked into anything. I knew what I had to do. I sat in silence, staring at nothing. Just then, Victor walked into the kitchen. He was wearing gym shorts, no shirt, holding a Red Bull. He froze when he saw my face. You knew? I asked him, my voice low. He looked like a deer in headlights. I thought she told you, man. I stood up. I didn't even know what I was going to do. My hands were fists, my whole body trembling. I looked at Celine again. You let me dream. You let me plan. And all the while, you were, what? Counting on me to bankroll your brother's next dumpster fire. It's just money, Damon, she snapped. God, you're acting like I am ridered someone. I said nothing. Just grabbed my keys and walked out. I drove for hours. Ended up in a diner on Route 22, somewhere between nowhere and who cares. I sat in a booth with SHTTY coffee and watched an elderly couple feed each other pie. I wanted to be sick. I stayed at a motel that night. Then the next. Then a week. Work was a blur. I told my boss I had a family emergency and logged in just enough to not get fired. Celine sent texts. Then emails. Then voicemails. I didn't listen to a single one. When I finally came back to the house, most of my things were packed. She left a note on the counter. We clearly want different things. I'll always care about you, but I need to move on. I hope one day you'll understand. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, feeling like someone had scooped everything out of me. I got a lawyer the next morning. She fought the divorce. Said I abandoned her. Claimed I was emotionally unavailable. It was all bullshit, and I had the hospital email to prove it. My lawyer, Renata, bless her soul, went in like a bloodhound. Calm, methodical, merciless. Victor tried to call me too. left this pathetic voicemail about how he didn't know it was going to go down like that, and that maybe we could still work something out with the app. I blocked his number. It took 9 months to finalize the divorce. In that time, Victor's app launched. It barely made a ripple. Users complained about bugs, data leaks, and fake therapists. 6 months after launch, it crashed completely. He tried blaming the developer, then Celine, then the haters. I heard from a mutual friend that he borrowed money from the wrong people and skipped town. Last I heard, he was in Belize selling essential oils. As for Celine, she vanished from my life like smoke. No goodbye, no apology, just silence. I didn't try dating for a long time. I wasn't ready. I didn't trust anyone. Hell, I didn't trust myself. But then I met Nora, and everything changed. I met Nora at a hardware store, of all places. I was standing in the aisle, trying to figure out if I needed a 5/8-inch anchor or a 3/4 for a bookshelf I was putting up in my apartment. I must have looked completely lost, because this woman beside me leaned in and said, "You planning to mount a TV, or just impress someone with your wall SKLLS?" I looked over. She had this quiet confidence, like someone who didn't care whether you were impressed or not. Light hair tied back, freckles, paint on her shirt. I gave a tired smile. Honestly, just trying to make the place feel like home. She nodded. Been there. After my divorce, I spent 3 hours choosing curtain rods. I blinked. You're divorced? Yeah, she said casual. 3 years ago. He left. Said he was going to find himself. Last I heard, he found a bar in Reno and a girl with 2 neck tattoos. That made me laugh. Not a forced laugh either, like something real had cracked through the shell I'd built. We talked for 10 minutes. I don't even remember if I bought the anchor. What I remember is writing my number on the back of a receipt and handing it to her like a damn teenager. She texted later that night. Still thinking about curtain rods. You free for coffee? That's how it started. With Nora, nothing felt forced. She didn't push. She didn't pry. She just let things unfold. We'd meet for walks. Grocery runs. Sometimes we didn't talk much. Other times, she'd ask the kinds of questions no one else had bothered with. What was the hardest part of it? She asked me once while we sat at this diner near the river. I stared into my coffee. The silence, I said. How she made the biggest decision of our lives, and I found out like it was a canceled dinner reservation. And I guess, knowing she could smile to my face while already planning to erase everything we built. Nora didn't respond right away. She just reached across the table and squeezed my hand. No pity, no cliches, just presence. That night, I cried for the first time since it happened. Not because I was sad, because someone finally saw the hole in me and didn't look away. Months passed. Slowly, I let myself trust again. With her, things weren't flashy. There weren't grand gestures, just steady warmth. I'd show up with a busted drawer. She'd fix it. She'd be stressed from work. I'd bring her soup and fold her laundry. We became solid. Then came the doctor's appointment. It wasn't planned. Nora was late. She said she'd been stressed, off her cycle. I picked up a test while getting groceries. We stared at the stick in silence until the second line showed. She laughed. I cried. We talked for hours. It wasn't like before. There was fear, yes, but this time, I felt included. We made the appointments together. Chose the OBGYN together. Heard the heartbeat, together. And just like that, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. But life, as I'd learned, never moves in a straight line. About 2 months into the pregnancy, I was at a gas station, filling up my car. I looked up and there she was, Celine. Just standing by the car wash kiosk, tapping her phone. She hadn't changed much. Same posture. Same 2 perfect hair. But something in her face had hardened. She looked tired. Older. Angry somehow. We locked eyes. She blinked, surprised. Then smiled, small, cautious. Damon. I didn't respond at first. Just finished pumping the gas. She walked over. Wow. You look good. You look the same, I said, voice flat. A pause. She glanced at my car. Still driving the Honda? Still reliable, I replied. There was silence. Then she blurted. I saw your divorce went through. Yeah, a year ago. She hesitated. Listen, I wanted to say, I wasn't trying to hurt you. You succeeded anyway. She flinched. I was lost, Damon. I didn't know what I wanted. My head was all over the place. And instead of talking to me, you made the choice alone. Then laughed in my face when I said the money was for our baby. She looked away. I didn't laugh. You did, I said calmly. You said, well, there's no baby now. Like it was a punchline. I was scared, she murmured. And Victor, he needed me. He was going to lose everything. I felt my fists clench. He did lose everything. You both did. Because you used people like stepping stones. Her voice broke a little. I'm sorry. I nodded. That's not for me to fix. She glanced at my hand. No ring. Then her eyes moved to my shirt. You seeing someone? Yeah. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good. You deserve that. I nodded again and got in my car. She stayed there, watching as I drove away. I didn't tell Nora that night. Not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want that woman's shadow anywhere near what we were building. but I couldn't shake the encounter. Seeing Celine again reminded me of who I'd been, how far I'd come, and how much I had to lose now. And yet, part of me couldn't help but wonder, why now? Why was she back? What did she want? Because I had this sinking feeling that our story wasn't finished yet. A week after I saw Celine, she messaged me. It was a short text. Just, can we talk? I swear it's not what you think. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I set the phone down, got up, and paced. I hadn't told Nora. Part of me thought I should, but the other part, the tired, protective part, wanted to keep the past locked where it belonged. Celine and I were done. Done like ashes after a fire. There was nothing left to discuss. But then the next message came. It's about the baby. Please, Damon. Just one conversation. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I went outside, sat on the porch, and just breathed. The air was sharp, early spring cold. The kind that clears your head whether you want it to or not. Nora came out a few minutes later. She had that sixth sense. She always seemed to know when I needed her, without asking. You okay? She asked, leaning against the railing. Yeah, I said. Just tired. She nodded, quiet for a beat. You've been somewhere else the past couple of days. I hesitated, then sighed. I ran into her. At a gas station. Her brows drew in. Her. Celine. Nora didn't flinch, didn't look jealous or insecure. She just looked at me. Waiting. She messaged me. I added. Said she wants to talk. Said it's about the baby. She turned, arms crossed now. Do you believe her? I don't know, I admitted. I don't even know what she could mean by that. Nora didn't respond right away. Then she said, if you go, just be careful. You've worked hard to build this peace. Don't let her pull you back into chaos. I looked at her. You're okay with me meeting her? I'm not okay with it, she said, honest. But I trust you. And if you don't get whatever this is off your chest, it's going to eat at you. That's when I knew. I didn't just love Nora. I respected her. She wasn't trying to control me. She saw me. All of me. Even the broken parts. The next day, I texted Celine back. We agreed to meet at a park. Neutral ground. Daylight. Public. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench with a takeaway coffee. Her hair was shorter now. She looked thinner. Pale. Thanks for coming, she said when I sat down. Let's get to the point, I replied. You said it's about the baby. She bit her lip, then nodded slowly. I lied. My jaw clenched. You think? No, I mean I lied to Victor. And myself. About everything. I didn't just change my mind about the pregnancy. I was manipulated. I blinked. What are you talking about? She looked down, like it hurt to say. Victor told me you didn't want the baby. That you said it would ruin everything. What? I said sharply, sitting up straighter. She nodded, ashamed. He told me you were planning to leave. That you'd said once the baby came, your life would be over. That you only agreed to try for me, not because you actually wanted it. My blood ran cold. Why would you believe that? Because he's my brother, she said. And because I was scared, and angry, and looking for someone to blame. I stared at her, stunned. So instead of talking to me, you just believed the guy who once tried to sell raw water out of his van? I know how it sounds, she said quickly. But you were working so much. Distant. I thought maybe he was right. And when you told me, when you dropped it on me like some kind of twisted joke, what was that? Punishment. She flinched. I thought if I made it seem like I didn't care, it would hurt less. That if I was the villain, at least it would make sense to hate me. You didn't need help with that, I muttered. She took a long breath. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I know I burned the whole thing to the ground. But I wanted you to know the truth. You deserved at least that. I looked at her for a long time. Then asked, why now? She hesitated. Because I've been in therapy. Because I've lost almost everyone. And because 2 weeks ago, I found out I can't have kids anymore. Some complication from the procedure. Too much scarring. The air left my lungs. I know it doesn't change anything, she said, voice trembling. But when I saw you at the station, I felt like the universe was giving me one last chance to do something right. We sat in silence. Then I stood. I'm sorry for what you've gone through. I really am. But you took something from me that I'll never get back. And now I have someone who's giving me that chance again. I won't let you undo it. She nodded, eyes glassy. I wouldn't ask you to. As I walked away, she didn't follow. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, staring out at nothing. I didn't look back. But the truth followed me home like a ghost. I didn't know if it would haunt me forever, or just long enough to finally set me free. That night, I couldn't sleep. Nora lay beside me, her back warm against my chest, her hand resting on her belly like a subconscious shield. The rhythmic rise and fall of her breathing usually calmed me. But now my mind was racing. I kept seeing Celine's face, the way her voice cracked, the bitterness behind her words, tangled up with regret. I didn't want to feel sorry for her, not after everything. But something about the image of her sitting on that bench alone, knowing she could never have children again, clung to me. The universe has a cruel way of balancing scales. Sometimes it waits years. Sometimes it uses people you once loved to teach you things you didn't ask to learn. I slipped out of bed and walked into the kitchen. The clock on the oven blinked 2:41 a.m. I poured a glass of water and stood by the window, watching the branches shift in the wind. What did she say? I turned around. Nora was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, wearing one of my old flannel shirts. I hesitated. You sure you want to talk about this now? I couldn't sleep either. I nodded, pulled out a chair. She joined me. She said Victor lied to her. I finally said. Told her I didn't want the baby, that I was planning to leave. Nora's brow furrowed. You think she's telling the truth? I don't know, I admitted. But she was different. Broken, almost. She broke herself, Nora said. Not bitter. Just matter of fact. Yeah, I said. And now she has to live with that. Nora looked at me for a long moment. Do you still have feelings for her? It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't even a trap. Just a question from someone who deserved the truth. No, I said. But I still have feelings about her. She nodded slowly, eyes softening. That makes sense. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're my future. You and this little one. I'm not going back there. But I had to look at it one more time to make sure I didn't want it anymore. She squeezed my hand. I get it. And just like that, something heavy in me lifted. But life, as always, had more in store. 3 days later, I got a letter. A real one. Envelope, stamp, the whole deal. No return address. Just my name written in neat cursive I didn't recognize. I opened it in the parking lot outside work. It was a single sheet of paper. I never told her everything. I should have, but I needed the money. I thought I could fix it later. I was wrong. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting. Victor. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the note. My fingers tingled. I'd thought he vanished after Belize or wherever he'd fled to. I never expected to hear from him again. The letter raised more questions than it answered. What didn't he tell Celine? What did he need the money for badly enough to tear a family apart? I folded the paper and tucked it in my glove box. Part of me wanted to track him down, get the whole story. The other part knew there was no version of it that would fix anything. But the seed was planted. And seeds have a funny way of growing, even when you don't water them. A few days later, I met up with Mike, my oldest friend. We were at a little bar in Dormont, same one we'd gone to since we were in our 20s. It smelled like old leather and burnt pretzels. Mike sipped his beer and leaned back. You look better than you did last year. That woman must be magic. She is, I said, smiling. Then why do you look like you're holding back a fart that's about to cause emotional damage? I chuckled. Because Celine came back. His smile dropped. What? When? Told me the whole pregnancy thing was based on a lie. Victor fed her bullshit. She believed him. Mike whistled low. Man, that's dark. I thought I was done with all that. But then I get a letter from Victor. Mike leaned forward. What did it say? That he lied. That he's sorry. But he didn't go into details. Mike shook his head. You think he's trying to set the record straight? Or trying to save his own skin? Could be both. We were quiet a minute. Then he said, so what are you gonna do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks I should let it go. But the other part, I feel like I need to know how far it went. What I really lost. Closure. Maybe. Or maybe just understanding. Mike sipped his beer again. Just make sure you're not dragging your new life through old flames. Yeah, I said, but it echoed hollow. Because the truth is, once you've been betrayed that deeply, even peace starts to feel like a waiting room. Like you're holding your breath, just in case the past comes back knocking. And now it had. The next morning, I stared at Victor's letter again. One line, scrawled like a rushed apology. No details, no real ownership. Just enough guilt to shift the weight onto me. That's the thing about people like Victor. They're always sorry just enough to avoid consequences, never enough to take real responsibility. But I'd changed. I wasn't the man he knew. I wasn't about to let it in like that. So I made some calls. A few favors. A few quiet strings pulled. Turns out Victor hadn't gone far at all, just changed his name and was now operating under a new LLC registered in New Jersey. Some wellness marketing scam this time. Not shocking. I sent one more message to Celine. Just a heads up. Not angry, not bitter. Victor reached out. Be careful. He's still lying. Just thought you should know. She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. I wasn't reaching out to build a bridge. I was building the last brick in the wall between us. But my curiosity still had teeth. I asked my lawyer, Renata, to dig a little deeper. She owed me a favor after I referred her 3 new clients. 2 weeks later, she called me. Guess what Victor used to fund his failed app? She asked. What? The trust fund your parents set up for the baby. The one you mentioned during the divorce proceedings. He forged a signature and withdrew nearly $14,000 from it before Celine had the pregnancy terminated. My blood went cold. Are you serious? Dead serious, she said. He's not just a leech. He's a criminal. What can we do? Oh, honey, Renata said. This is where I shine. It took 3 months. 3 glorious, calculated months. Victor's business accounts were frozen. The new LLC was flagged for fraud. Renata filed a formal complaint with the IRS about the wellness transactions. And the best part? We brought the forged trust withdrawals to court. He tried to play dumb. Claimed it was a gift. Claimed Celine had given him access. Celine, to her credit, didn't lie for him. She admitted she didn't know. In court, I sat 2 rows behind him, watching him squirm in that cheap suit, the same one he probably wore to pitch investors. The judge ordered him to pay restitution, fines, and imposed a 5-year financial oversight restriction. Basically, he can't touch a bank account without oversight unless he wants jail time. No prison, no headlines. Just a slow, humiliating spiral downward in the one area he cared about, money. And I got the last word. I sent him one last letter. You stole from your unborn niece or nephew. You lied, manipulated, and buried the truth for a pipe dream that went up in flames. You cost me everything I thought I wanted, but you also made room for everything I didn't know I needed. You don't get forgiveness. You get consequences. Enjoy them. No response. Good. Celine sold her condo a few months later. I heard she moved to Vermont, started over. I didn't follow up. That chapter was closed. Not because she asked for forgiveness, but because I was finally able to give it to myself. Nora gave birth to a baby girl that spring. We named her Alara. She has my eyes and Nora's laugh. And when she curls her tiny hand around my finger, I feel a peace that can't be stolen, faked, or broken. One afternoon, while Nora napped and Alara slept on my chest, I looked around our little living room. The bookshelf I'd mounted crooked. The hand-me-down couch we kept because Nora loved the pattern. The faint hum of the old fridge that we said we'd replace, but probably never would. And I thought, this is it. This is my revenge. Not just what I took back, but what I built in spite of it all. Not louder, just better.